Okay.
Always such a lovely voice.
So Jeff and Tyson, I'll just let you guys introduce yourselves and just lead us from there.
Cool. So my name is Jeff Romero. I think I've jumped on Tech Connect a few times before. I'm one of the co-founders of Octave Digital. I've got a background in SEO, marketing, information systems, basically anything to do with digital marketing. I have played in that realm in one way or another. I used to work for a bigger retailer up in Sacramento. Once I left there, I kind of synced up with Tyson and said, hey, let's go start our own business. Let's try to do this for small businesses. And our goal over the last year and a half has really just been helping small businesses to learn how to grow, learn how to take advantage of different tools online, and get into the mix of Google and Facebook and just different channels like that.
Perfect. Yeah, so my name's Tyson Bell. I'm the other co-founder of Octave Digital. My background has been mostly in technology, worked for a bunch of the tech companies in the Bay Valley. Eventually went to business school, got my MBA with a background in marketing. And yeah, just here to help small businesses and help them navigate the waters of Google and all the other sort of tech downfalls that plague small businesses. So
nice. Time for that. It's definitely been needed.
Yeah, there was quite a big upsurge with it in the course of the last year, with so many businesses saying, oh, we've got to go online now. And then just, it's been great for our business because we've had to say, oh, let's help you. Let's help you figure out how to get online and what you need to do.
Nice. Okay. Will you guys be sharing a PowerPoint?
Yep. Yeah, so let me go ahead and share my screen. I think we're all unable to do that. Perfect.
I think so. There you go.
Cool. So today we're going to be talking about why businesses, and specifically small businesses, can't ignore SEO. So we've kind of already introduced ourselves here. So I'm just going to go ahead and go into the opening slide here. So we're going to look at what is SEO, what SEO is not, because there's a lot of, misconstrued opinions about what SEO is. Is it something on Facebook? Is it something on Amazon? Different stuff like that. What different keyword targets are, what local SEO is, why link earning is a big piece of SEO, what to avoid, and then why SEO should be part of your overall digital marketing mix.
All right, perfect. So the first thing we kind of wanted to cover, just as an intro, is with SEO. I don't know how many of you are actually familiar with SEO or how many of you are actually currently using it in your business. But essentially, we're going to go into the technical aspects of that here in just a moment. But simply, SEO is really, in short, how to get your business to show up on Google and other search engines. So if you've ever, looked for a plumber and said, plumber, Sacramento, California, the list of people that come up didn't just get there by chance. There's a lot of strategy and a lot of things that have to happen in the background to actually show up. You can't just, create a business, throw up a website and hope that it sticks.
So when we get into SEO, and like I said, SEO can mean a lot of different things to different people. I've heard people refer to it on Facebook, on Amazon, even on LinkedIn. When we really talk SEO, we're talking about what's going on with Google and Bing. There's other search engines out there that are a little bit more regionally focused, like search engines in China, Russia, stuff like that. But for what we do, for the businesses we help, we focus on Google. So the three big areas that we look at with an SEO campaign are the on-page elements. So that's going to be your content, technical SEO, anything to do with how is Google actually crawling your website. So like Tyson said, it's one thing to have a website, have some content out there, but you have to help Google find it. You have to help Google be able to read that website, find different links to content on the site. So there's a lot of steps that have to go on there. That also gets into your internal linking. Your page speed is important. That's become even more important. Google always wants to drive a really fast user experience for its users. So if your website's slow, you run the risk of getting dropped out of Google, or Google just not showing you at the top of results. So you want to have a really fast site. There's other technical components like your title tags, your heading structure. When you land on a page, does it logically make sense the way that you have your information structured? That all kind of builds into the on-page focus of it. And then with the content itself, you want to have a keyword focus. You want to have an intent. So running with Tyson's example of the plumber, if you've got a website and you talk about your different services, you want to link those back to what are people actually searching in Google and Bing to get to those. So if they're searching Sacramento plumber, great. You want to have content about Sacramento plumber. If you're talking about fixing a kitchen sink, you want to have content about that. So just that kind of intent mapping is all about the content piece of it. And then the biggest area that kind of takes off after all the on-page stuff is good to go, you've got a great website, you've got great copy on the site. The next big piece is where you're getting links. And that's sort of like, if you think of it kind of like a popularity contest, Google wants to see, hey, the websites that have the most links pointing to their site, they're typically going to rank the best, but it's not always about the quality of links, it's about the quantity. You want to get those votes from really important people, so to speak, bloggers, different resource sites, different citation sources. So like the Chamber of Commerce is one of them, Better Business Bureau pages, Yelp, things like that. If you're getting links from those kind of sources, Google is going to see that and say, oh, this is a trustworthy site. This is someone we want to rank higher in the results.
Awesome. So one of the things that we get asked a lot, because obviously that's a lot of information, especially for most small business owners that maybe haven't ever had a website or, have other people that handle the website for them. Most people just don't understand the kind of work that it takes in the background in order to, get those good rankings in the search engine pages. But some of the things we do run into a lot are people get misconstrued about what SEO is and what it isn't. So we thought it was important to cover a little bit about what SEO is not and what it won't do for your company or your business. So obviously SEO is not a short-term growth strategy. Just plain and simply, it takes time to get good content. It takes time to teach Google what's on your website. It takes a lot of time to build up credibility to your business. So, it's not something that you can just go out and hire somebody to do for a couple hours, a week for 2 or 3 weeks, and then, hope that you're going to start picking up steam. It takes a sustained effort over a number of months in order to really get those rankings, especially if you're in a very competitive industry.
You got it, Lucas.
The next thing, SEO is not paid advertising. So while there is some componentry to being found on search engines by paying for, ads and things to show up, SEO is really to drive organic traffic. So you don't necessarily pay for every visit you're getting to the site. You're basically paying to build equity into your site so that you'll show up in searches when people type in, food near me, or, where can I hire a plumber, those kinds of things. So it is separate from that. Along that same lines, SEO is not a social media strategy. So, we all know that businesses are migrating over to social media. They're putting a lot of content on there. They're advertising heavily on there. Stuff that happens within social media platforms doesn't necessarily translate over to, Google searches and things like that. It is kind of its own separate entity. And then the last thing, SEO is not a replacement for poor web design. So no matter how good your SEO strategy, if you don't have a good website that's modern, that's accessible, that's user-friendly, that really drives intent, Google simply is just not going to help you rank for searches. There's a couple pieces that they really look for as far as, does your website perform on mobile devices? Does your website, have all of its security updates? There's a lot of componentry in there. And like I say, no matter how much money you want to pump into your SEO, if you don't have a website that's optimally performing, you're just never going to get there.
So then when we're looking at an SEO campaign and we're really breaking down, especially for a small business website, we look at branded versus non-branded keywords. So kind of running with a plumbing example here, an example of a branded keyword is if, let's say someone named Jack went out and created a plumbing site, Jack's Plumbing is going to be his branded keyword. People are going to find that, they're going to see him in, possibly print ads, something like that, popping up on the newspaper, and then they're going to go to Google and find the site that way. Where you're going to pull in a lot of new customers and get into what we would call generic searches are on the non-brand keywords. So plumbing service Modesto, find a plumber near me, fix the kitchen sink plumber near me, something like that. Those kind of different combinations of keywords. That's where you're going to pull in new customers who have never actually met you before. It's going to be brand new traffic. It's not people who already know Jack's Plumbing, so to speak. So that's kind of the big difference in the two different kind of keywords we go after. Obviously, with non-branded traffic, it's going to be a lot more competitive. That's what other people are kind of going after. That's what they're trying to create content for. You're always, well, I shouldn't say always, but 9 times out of 10, you should show up for your branded keywords unless something is really wrong with the website. You should show up there, but your non-branded stuff, that's where you're going to pull your new customers. And that's where it takes a bit of time to get into that and try to figure out, okay, what is that non-branded traffic? What are people searching? What are those month-over-month metrics? And then how do I create content to kind of match up with that?
So kind of the next piece of SEO, you've got your general SEO, but then another aspect that we really like to focus on, especially for small and localized businesses, is going to be your local SEO campaigns. These are extremely helpful because they kind of tie into a number of location services, especially with like Google Maps. So if you kind of look over on the right side of the slide here, you can see this is just a particular search that went through for Colorado law or lawyer or something to that effect. You can see there's typically what they call a 3-pack, where 3 of the best ranking businesses will kind of show up first for that search. And they have all the localized tags. So this one happens to be searched for in the Colorado area. So you can see, you know, the different law firms there in Colorado. So if you've got a really good localized SEO strategy in place, your business can start to show up in these 3-packs on the map, and that takes up a lot of area on the actual screen real estate. So they're extremely important, extremely helpful. They drive a lot of traffic, especially, like I say, for localized search. And there's a lot of kind of specialization that goes into the back end of getting those to show up there. So one of the ways that we typically do that is to help build trust in the business. We're going to get into that a little bit more here in the next slide, but you really want to make sure that Google understands what it is you do and where it is that you service. So if you're able to do that, you're a lot more likely to show up in those searches, you know, that are extremely localized. And the next way that we also help that by teaching Google what the business is and where it's located is by creating what we call citations or business directories out on, you know, a number of different sites. Some of the big ones that most people are familiar with are going to be, you know, Google My Business, MapQuest, you know, Yellow Pages, White Pages, Chamber of Commerce pages, you know, really anywhere that you can give your business information, like your name, your phone number, your hours, things like that. Google will start to compile those. If they are seeing consistent results, you know, then they can understand, hey, yeah, this is a legitimate business. These are all the different places that they're listed, you know, and then they'll start to rank the business for those localized searches. So, you know, you can get into things specific like plumber near me, or, you know, any variation of that that's targeted based on your location. That's, you know, obviously extremely important.
Not only do these citations go into, sorry, let me go back here, go into how Google ranks you, and you're going to get that Google traffic, but you can also see traffic come from these as well. So Yelp is a very popular one. Being local is pretty popular. People still go to whitepages.com, which is kind of crazy to me. I didn't think a lot of people were doing that, but people still do that. And so people can find you on those different kind of subsets of search engines, but then ultimately you're building up your authority with Google. And another way that you really build up your authority is through editorial links, or blog links is what a lot of people call them. So this is where we've got all of your content taken care of on your site, all of your on pages done, but we want to start showing Google like, hey, this site's important for this set of keywords or for this particular topic. So a lot of what we do in our campaigns, we knock out that kind of technical and on-page piece first. And then the more kind of long-standing piece of this is going out and sourcing links to point back to the site. So for instance, we try to find sites that they're categorically relevant. So for instance, if we're talking about a plumber, we're going to go out and we're going to find websites that are talking about plumbing or HVAC or home repair services. anything like that that's going to kind of tie into, it's going to be categorically relevant. It's going to be contextual to whatever the website is and to whatever those keywords are. So we go in and we find a lot of those different bloggers and webmasters and says, hey, how can we earn a link from you? Typically there is some type of transaction that's involved, but we like to, try to, build that relationship over time. And now we're getting to the point where we have several different relationships with bloggers where, depending on what the industry is, we know, okay, we're going to go talk to, Susan over here. We're going to go talk to Margaret over here, whoever the webmaster is. And for some reason, I'm thinking of some of the different mommy bloggers that we work with because they create good content. So we go out and reach out to them and we say, hey, can we get a link pointing back to our site from here? And this is just an example of kind of what that looks like. And this is actually an example of Bay Valley Tech for Phil, where we went out and we said, okay, we found a site talking about soft and hard skills needed in the age of automation, meaning people need to learn how to code. That's going to be very important to landing different careers, different jobs, things like that. So we went out and found, okay, here's a placement, and we want to insert our topic of Bay Valley Tech in California and talking about one of our main keywords for Bay Valley Tech is Free Code Academy. So just inserting that in there. And then the way this sort of develops over time is Google sees this pointing over to the Bay Valley Tech website, says, oh, okay, they're getting mentioned here. They must be a credible website. I want to rank them for whatever their target keywords are. So kind of just pulls that whole relationship full circle. So then Tyson's going to tell us what to avoid with SEO because there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So like we've said a number of different times, it does get really technical when you're dealing with SEO. A lot of people, especially small businesses that we talk to, one of the biggest things we hear all the time is, someone tells them you should be doing SEO. And, a lot of us, especially, entrepreneurs and stuff, we have that, I want to do it myself attitude, like go in, dive in, figure it out. And more times than not, if you don't know what you're doing, you can get in a lot of trouble with Google for utilizing some, not best practices when you're implementing your SEO strategy. So a couple of things just right off the top that you want to avoid, whether you try to do it yourself or you're looking to hire like an agency to help deal with SEO. These are just a couple of red flags and things you definitely don't want to do. The first one, be very wary of cheap or quick SEO. We see a lot of people reaching out to us all the time through email. I'm sure you've gotten spammed over and over with, things that are people that are offering, hey, I'll come in and I'll do your SEO for $90 a month, or I'll come in and we can build you 1,000 links for $6. A lot of times when the price is really low and it seems too good to be true, it often is. And folks that are utilizing tactics like that typically are not using best Google practices for your SEO. And it can be very detrimental to your business. And in some cases, you might not be able to recover from the penalties that Google will impose on your business if they find that you're trying to cheat or game the system a little bit. So definitely want to be wary of cheap and quick SEO. Again, it's not something you can just hop in and be good after 20 days. A lot of times, if you're in a very competitive sphere, it can take anywhere from 6 months to a year to get some good traction, and then time beyond that, even just to start to break into, some of the really big, heavy searches and that. So definitely want to be aware of that. If you do end up talking to an SEO agency or, other marketing specialists, don't be afraid to ask them for results. If a person comes in, we'll see a lot of times too, where people will guarantee results. I'll guarantee that you'll get on the first page of Google in 2 months. Be very wary of that. There's no sort of I guess I want to say like instruction booklet or anything that Google gives you that says, hey, do X, Y, and Z, and you'll be where you want to be. It's not that way. Google makes hundreds and hundreds of updates to their algorithm a year. And if you're not doing the right things in the right way, you're just never going to get there. And even when you do know what you're doing, it can be really tough sometimes. So if someone guarantees that they can get you results, be wary of that. Ask them to show you examples of work they've done or a lot of marketing agencies will have what we call case studies, where they should be able to provide you some information that'll show you, how they do their work, what results they've been able to achieve, and things like that. So you definitely want to be wary of that stuff as well. Along those same lines, again, be wary of SEO packages. A lot of agencies and companies will come out and they'll try to fit everyone in this cookie cutter mold. They'll say, oh, your business, you can pay us $99 a year and you'll get X, Y, and Z. And, they may be able to help out. They may do a decent job, but, as we all know, every business is different. Everyone kind of has their own specialties. Everyone has their own areas of expertise and, areas of service, different things like that. So if someone's trying to fit you into a very specific mold, you're probably not going to get the same results as you would for someone who's going to go out and try to help build a package specific to your goals. So definitely be aware of that. And then one of the other big ones we see, avoid using tools out there like Fiverr and Upwork for SEO strategy. A lot of these kind of contractor websites and things like that can be really great for small projects. You've got a quick change on your website you need to make. You want a quick graphic created, things like that. There's a lot of really talented people out there that can do the work for relatively cheap. A lot of times, the outsourcing, they're usually from places, like India or the Philippines, and they do a really great job for a lot of small tasks and things like that. But for SEO, we found more times than not, when you're trying to save money, typically they are also going to be trying to save money, and they're not going to do things the right way. And again, you can just get in a lot of trouble with Google for that. So just make sure if you are going to use someone to do your SEO, again, just make sure you're working with an expert that knows what they're doing, that's doing things the right way. And then the final thing to kind of avoid is another one we see a lot coming through email, different things like that. We'll get a lot of outreach from folks saying, hey, I'm a blogger outreach specialist and I can get your website listed on X, Y, and Z website. Like, here's what I charge to get a link from this website here. A lot of those people are using what we call link farms, where they just go out, they get a bunch of websites that are willing to place your links on there with no regard to relevance or content or anything like that. And they just put a bunch of links on there, and you get some of the credibility from that. But over time, those links aren't natural. They're not talking about anything relative to your business. Oftentimes they're very spammy. They've got a lot of really bad content on them. And, Google doesn't like that. When they start to find that your website's getting listed in these same pools of websites over and over again, that's kind of a red flag to them. That shows that, hey, this website's trying to gain credibility without, actually doing what they need to do for us to kind of put our stamp of approval on it. So you definitely want to make sure you look out for those.
Awesome. So then just a handful of stats here about why we feel like SEO needs to be in your marketing mix. We've kind of touched on, it's one thing for a business to go out and have a Yelp profile or have a Facebook profile. That shouldn't be your end all be all strategy. Those platforms can change any day. They could drop you from their listings, information like that can go that quick. We all know Facebook is in hot water here and there. So just imagine if you're relying on that for your business traffic, that's an issue. That's something where it's kind of a little bit scary. So that gets into the whole why you'd want to have your own website too, but also just having an SEO strategy. And then just some stats here about what we see about SEO. So there are over 7 billion searches performed on Google every day. And I believe the figure is somewhere around 65% of that are unique searches. So people are always searching new keywords. It's one thing for us to go out and say, okay, this particular business should go after this plumbing keyword, but there could be so many other variations about how people are searching that. We try to look at what are the ones that are most common and getting searched the most and then optimize for those. But the fact being that there's just a lot of searches happening every day, every hour, every minute. It's kind of crazy how Google works with that. Another fact here is that 93% of online searches begin with a search engine. This is kind of just a crazy number to look at. I know part of that is about somewhere around like 55% of product searches begin on Amazon, but Amazon is in and of itself kind of a search engine, but 93% of people are searching for something. That's for the most part, that's what we're using online for. We're trying to solve a problem. We're going to a Google or a Bing or even an Amazon if it's a product, and we're trying to find a solution to the problem that we're having. So just kind of a crazy number to look at there. 61% of Google searches are done via mobile devices. So this has grown tremendously year over year since about 2014, where phones just began, everybody has a smartphone now. That trend kind of started actually earlier than 2015, but that's where Google started to pay attention and really say, okay, we're going to make sure that our algorithms, all the pages that we serve back in search results, they're going to be mobile friendly, all that. And that's why they kind of look for websites to be mobile friendly and be accessible, kind of like what Tyson was talking about there. So just a number to consider there. And this is especially important to think about depending on your business. So we work with a handful of real estate agents where there's people out on the go, they're looking for homes, they're looking for condos, townhouses, whatever that might be. And they're looking on their phone. They want to look up that information. They want to see what's going on. So for that type of industry, mobile search is very, very important. And then another fact here, so if done right, SEO can drive a 14.6% conversion rate. For a lot of websites, they hover around like a 1 to 2% conversion rate. So if you think about this, over 10% conversion rate is just kind of insane. And if you're selling products online, that's even more insane, but you can pinpoint very specific searches that are conversion driven, drive people to those pages, get them through checkout. If it's a service that you sell, getting them through there, that's just a huge conversion rate to consider. And then what's really big for us and why we come into play working with people, kind of going back to that whole brand versus non-brand keyword strategy, is that 75% of users don't scroll past the first page. If you are on the second page or beyond, you're not getting a lot of clicks. You will get some impressions, you'll get a tiny bit, but not a whole lot. And that's why we look to figure out, okay, what's that non-brand keyword strategy? What are those generic searches that we want to go for? Get them surfaced on the first page of Google, and then that's where you're going to see the traffic come from it. So that's kind of where we come into play. And then also, like Tyson mentioned, there are a ton of algorithm updates that happen. We typically see between like 500 and 600 that are not usually named by Google, but they just kind of throw a number out there. Sometimes they will come out and say, okay, we're going through an algorithm update right now. For instance, there is one actually happening right now called the page experience update. That's all about, is your site slow? If it is, you're going to get, you're going to lose some rankings and some traffic. But there's just always stuff going on. And this is really key why it's important for you to either have the time to dedicate yourself to something like this, or have a partner who's working on this kind of stuff, because there's all these updates that happen. Your keywords might be looking great one day, the next day they might drop off. If you're not using the right tracking tools to understand that data and see those trends, your site is going to lose traffic, you lose customers. That's obviously a bad scenario to be in. So that's why it's important to have an expert working on that kind of stuff in your corner. And that is actually all we had for you guys today. I don't know how we're doing on time, but if we do have time, we can definitely open up for a Q&A if there's any questions.
You have plenty of time, so feel free. Unmute yourselves and feel free to ask.
Perfect.
Does Octave build websites, just build websites on its own, or is it just a secondary, after the website's built, we help with your SEO? What does Octave do for?
So we do work, website design and development. We focus on WordPress or Shopify for e-commerce sites, and then also do SEO, SEM, and a little bit of social media advertising here and there.
Okay. Yep. No cybersecurity though?
No cybersecurity. Nope.
Anyone else?
Just curious, over the past few years, or even more than just a few years, but certainly in the past few years, it seems like Google in particular, really all their competitors too, doing the same thing, have been chewing up the public search engine results space and replacing it with sponsored content in various and sundry ways, to the point where the amount of actual SEO content on page one of the SERPs is kind of dwindled down to a very small amount. I was just wondering if you had any takes on that and how you're dealing with that.
Yeah. So it really ramped up, I want to say early 2017, when they sort of changed the whole layout of having the ads on the right-hand side to more of the top and the bottom of the SERP. And then they also have Google Shopping results now. So all of that being sponsored, it makes the space even smaller. So the way that we've sort of reacted to that is we've said, hey, we have to have better content. If we want to be in those 10 slots on the first page of Google, we've got to have better content to get there. And a lot of people in our space have kind of noticed the same thing, where it used to be you're going to get in there. Of course, there's going to be sponsored ads there. That's just Google's revenue model. Of course, that's going to be there. But you want to have attractive title tags. You want to have attractive description tags. You want to be able to get a person to click through on that onto that site. So the way that we've combated that is we've said, hey, we're not aiming for page 2 results, but we want to be on page 1, and we want to make sure that we have really attractive metadata that's going to get a person to click through. And there's kind of other features that come into that. There's a type of metadata about metadata called schema, where we can go in and basically add structured snippets to data. So if you've ever done a search where you see, let's say a product search, for example, where you see ratings showing underneath it, there's little stars and it says like out of a certain number of votes. So that's called structured data. That's another way that you can kind of stand out. For some results, you can get into images that are going to display. So if you have an image tagged in your page, that can pop up and kind of still a little bit of that real estate. Of course, like I said, Google's going to push for those paid ads, but there are little tricks to kind of make it look a little bit more clickable, basically.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
How does Octave keep up with the changing algorithms from Google?
Yep. So we have a number of different tools. One of the biggest ones that we use is actually a publicly facing tool called Mozcast, where it shows kind of a temperature of the SERPs and how many changes are happening. So typically it hovers around like 95 degrees. It's kind of funny how they build it out to be like basically like a thermometer. But if it jumps up to like 105 one day, we know, okay, there's stuff going on. We are very, very active in different blogs like Search Engine Land, SE Roundtable, different sources like that, where they're sort of covering that news. Twitter is actually very active for SEO as well. So we see a lot of data come from there. And then just our own clients rankings. We keep track of, we have a handful of different dashboards that show, how is traffic trending, how are rankings trending. If we see things start to slip, it means, okay, there's some type of penalty happening. Something else could be going on that we're not aware of that the client might be doing. I'll share an example with you guys where we have a client who just duplicated her entire website, forgot to tell us, which is really bad, because you're basically plagiarizing yourself, and Google's not going to know, oh, you own both of these websites. They're going to see that, oh, you created a website and it's plagiarized of this one. We don't know which one to rank, so we're just going to keep both down here. So we're currently navigating that situation, but that's just one situation where, there's unknowns that kind of happen. We can see the rankings kind of drop, but then really just keeping up with our clients too. That's important too.
Thanks.
Hey,
Jeff, oh, go ahead.
Could I just make a quick comment?
Sure.
Okay, so for those that don't know me, my name is Phil. My background is actually digital marketing. I used to work in a search engine. I used to run the digital marketing team amongst other teams. SEO has been something I've been working with in for 20 years. I used to lead teams that would manage a million keyword campaigns for SEO. We'd stuff billions of pages into Google's index for them against their will. So I've been doing this for a while, and what I can tell businesses is that the best SEO campaigns is a collaboration between a good internal team that knows what they're doing and has a little bit of a background, and an agency and a consultant like Octave, who stays, who stays in touch with all the changes, their feet. They got their boots on the ground. They work across industries. They work with multiple clients, because, anytime you're an SEO person and you go in-house, I feel like the clock starts ticking a bit, right? Because you're only working in one industry. You're only working on one campaign or set of campaigns. And so there's nothing like the folks that bring the fresh thinking, or, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's working in other industries that could, help your company and your industry, right? So even for somebody like myself, who's been an SEO person for decades, it's still highly valuable to work with agencies that are just, keeping up with the latest tools and the latest changes. We used to call this the Google dance, right? So Jeff and his team and Tyson, they figure out what's going on, then they help their clients to rank better. And then Google figures out that, oh, there's people trying to rank well, and we want to adjust the algorithm and then knock them back down. And then, right. So it's just a dance that goes back and forth. And so if you have good folks like Jeff and Tyson on your side, that's going to be a huge help for your business.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, and there's we didn't really get into the different hats that happen in SEO, but there are black hat techniques where Google knows that you're doing the dance and you're trying to force their hand. We don't get into any of that. There's gray hat where you're playing on the line a little bit, but you're eventually going to get penalized at some point. And then there's white hat, and that's what we try to stick to, where we're not buying links. We're not going out to these link scams. We're not, I'm going to go source 100,000 links from another country that has no relevance to my site whatsoever, just to get ranked for a couple weeks. We're not doing anything like that. And then we're really looking at content to say, okay, here's your piece of content. How does this stack up to everybody else in the market, in the SERP? And what are they talking about? What can we be doing differently? How can, no matter who the client is, how can we make sure that you're unique and call out things that are specific to you? And that just kind of all wraps into that white hat type of SEO.
Yeah, you used to be able to trick Google, right, and gain an unfair advantage, but they are so good now that the best strategy is just to be good at what you do as a company and have a website that's running properly and fast and have content that users find valuable, right?
Yep.
And that's why good consultant really is can be helpful in that process to make sure that as a business we're applying our limited resources and effort and time into the right areas to get results.
Any other technical questions? Feel free to unmute.
I had a question. I wanted to know how SEOs would relate to voice searches for like Siri and Alexa and Google Assist and all that.
Yep. Yeah. So there is a little bit of markup. Going back to that structured data markup, there is markup that kind of gets into that. But that is also a new area where people are trying to get into. It's still a bit undiscovered. There are a couple of key things that go into it. Number one, you have to be on the first page of results for any sort of voice device to return results about that. And then more likely than not, you also have to be like one of the top three. So not even just the first page, but one of the top three. You have to have content that matches what people are searching. And that's kind of the big question mark in the industry right now is, well, okay, how do we track all these voice searches? And there's still, Google has that data, Amazon has that data, but consultants like us and different tracking tools we use, they don't really have that much data yet. So it's kind of, you look at, okay, in general, what are people searching, whether it's, typing it in, that's typically the data that we're going to run off of. And then how can we create content to kind of match that? But I will say we don't have a single client who's looking at it and saying, I want to get into voice search. It's great for, restaurants near me or, any type of like localized questions. I think it's really helpful for, but it's still a bit of a mystery, just to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, there's a lot of chatter online if you look up the subject, if you're at all interested in it. There are a lot of people that kind of claim that that's going to be the next big wave. So it's certainly something that any good marketing company should be aware of and keeping an eye on. But like Jeff said, it's just not something that's really come to the forefront just yet. I think as more and more people start to adopt, Alexa devices and Siri devices and different things like that, and the transition away from, traditional computers to tablets and phones, certainly the way we search for information is always going to change. So definitely something to kind of keep an eye on. But at the moment, right now, it's just not something that's super prevalent.
Bob, you had unmuted. Did you have another question? No? Okay. I just saw it go off and on, so just checking. So I have kind of more of it's not a technical question, more of a curiosity question. So you said at the beginning when people were coming on that you met Phil originally from Sacramento. You're now in Utah. Mm-hmm. Where is your if you have a majority, where's the majority of your client base? Are they kind of collected in one area or another?
So mostly California.
Yeah.
We work with people from all over, like I said, but mostly California.
And all domestic?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. We've got clients, let's see. So we've got clients in Virginia, Washington, Florida, Georgia, Utah, obviously, California. I think the majority from California, but yeah, all over. And we're kind of in that time period where we can hop on a Zoom like this, and we don't usually have to take like an in-person meeting or go meet for coffee, where we can look at your data, we can look at your website, understand what's going on, and typically handle it over Zoom.
Nice. So how did you get a client in Florida, say? Is it someone that you knew here and they moved, and so you followed them there?
So it's actually the client in Florida specifically that I'm thinking of came through a former boss that I worked with.
Got it.
Yep. But we've had success ourselves, of course, with ranking and different things like that. So I can't think of a specific keyword off the top of my head, but I think it's like free SEO analysis that we get quite a bit of search from. So anybody all over the country can search that. We actually just met with a gal from Toronto earlier today, and she had searched that and found us. And so it's just, if you rank for that and you can fit a business need, then that just creates a conversation.
Very interesting.
And it's also
Great.
helpful if you can recognize, things like that within your own business. Sometimes, you can find kind of little hidden nuggets, if you will, of like search terms that don't have a lot of high volume searches. Those typically are easier to get ranked for. So, for some of these, it may only take a couple weeks, and you could potentially be the #1 result in Google from that. And while it won't lead to maybe as many visits or clicks, if it's something very specific, people find that, and if you're the first person there, they're going to click on you and find out what's going on. So that's another thing we like to do for small businesses, is really try to understand, where are these opportunities for some quick wins while we work on some of the longer tail stuff. So.
Yep.
It's interesting listening to you explain different parts of that at the beginning. The visual in my mind was like planting a garden. You were planting seeds and you were taking so much time to cultivate. It's not an overnight thing. And so it was interesting to listen to you explain the trajectory and the time invested, rather than just, you can't just do it overnight. It doesn't work that way. So really interesting insight.
Yeah, and a really important point we try to make to most clients is, let's say you're an attorney. You're really great with the law. Do you have time to take a step back and look at digital marketing? Do you have time to run a blog? Do you have time to go out and pitch people to try to earn links? And in most cases, no. And that's going to be the same for a lot of different businesses. So it takes time, it takes effort, and a lot of people they don't have that.
Yeah. This was a great presentation. Thank you very much for everything you just shared here today.
Yeah, of course.
Any other
Absolutely.
questions? I don't want to rush anyone through it.
I just, Trish, if you have time, I just have a couple of comments, updates on the tech community, if that's okay.
Sure, go right ahead.
Great. Yeah, so as a digital marketing manager, one of the things I always advise people to do when they're looking for consultants is, the proof is in the pudding, right? And so guess what? If you're looking for a SEO agency company in your city, what do you think is a way to determine what is a good SEO agency versus one that is not so good, right? So this is actually how Jeff and I got connected. If you search for SEO Sacramento, guess who comes up #1 on the search results and outranks all the other SEO digital marketing firms in Sacramento, right? And so yeah, just a little tip for those of you who are wanting to get into digital marketing and need to find good vendors at some point. So #1, and then #2, thank you so much everyone for coming today. We had quite a few folks show up. Some of us came a little bit later. Apologies for that. But glad to see that Tech Connect is continuing to thrive, and that the tech community in the Modesto region is continuing to grow. Bay Valley Tech is the free training program that we are providing continues to experience high demand, and we've been able to secure more and more funding agreements and sponsorships corporate sponsorships for the program to help people in our community. Oak Valley Community Bank, one of our regional bank leaders, just came and came alongside to partner with us, gave us one of the largest grants that the bank's ever given out in the history of their funding committee. So we're very happy about that. And then we are also speaking with many of our city and county leaders about the initiatives that we have planned that can benefit our community. So that is coming along. We are beginning to pull more resources together to help our tech community grow. In addition to that, Bay Valley Tech, my team and I, we've been reaching out to more Bay Area tech companies, the co-working space in downtown. We've got more tech companies moving in there. They are hiring. Those first set of hires have been, onboarded now, and so they are beginning to hire more. Right. So just in the last, I'd say 6 weeks, 7 weeks, we've been able to help probably 20 software developers locally get tech jobs. And so we are beginning to do more outreach to the Bay Area. I spent all last week meeting with companies there. Many of them are open to coming into Modesto and hiring more folks. So we're getting some MOUs, some agreements signed with them that are in process. And we are beginning to actually talk to bigger and bigger companies. Some of the large social networking websites. I've been talking to their the executives. We are talking to some of the largest search engines right in the world. There's only one really, and they are more and more aware of our talent base here in Modesto and more open to coming our way. So there's a whole variety of different companies that are coming, that are looking at what we're doing. And so as we continue to grow our tech community, our tech talent base, and as the coalition continues to come along and fund this, you guys are going to all see some good things happening. So really happy to report the continued progress that is happening. And then the other is we are in some planning stages of significantly expanding the tech co-working space in downtown right now. And so we've got partners to help us do that, and we're looking for another partner to execute on that and pull that off. But we're pretty far along in that discussion as well. So lots of exciting things happening. And so let your friends know, folks that want to get into this career. There's lots of good things happening. The other is that we will expand our curriculum to teach digital design and digital marketing later this year. So all these good things happening here in Modesto. And then just last point, Bay Valley Tech as an organization, we are expanding very quickly. We're training people all over the Bay Area right now. And we're getting applicants from actually all over the US, New Jersey, Chicago, Florida, coming in. Some applicants are coming in from overseas as well. And we have been asked to work with several large cities across the country who are coming to the table with significant 7-figure, potentially 8 figures in funding to train thousands of people in their city as well. So the good things that we're helping to do in Modesto, we will be able to help lots of other communities around the country, and getting folks that have been largely left out of the tech economy get into it and be able to get good paying job soon as well. So thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Trish, for continuing to pull this together, and really appreciate all of you guys coming online today. Thank you so much, Jeff and Tyson and Bob. Glad to see you're here, and thank you for your continued support. And so don't go too far. We'll be coming to you for, quite a bit of money later on. So.
Mhm.